Welcome to the Awesemo Mma DFS strategy show right here at Awesemo.com. Of course, I am Jason Floyd, as always, joined by the fighter Pete Rogers Jr., well, who's in the bubble there at the Mohegan Sun for Bellator 259 tomorrow night. Pete, how you doing there in the bubble? You survived the quarantine earlier this week. We were talking about that. So how you feel, bro?
What's going on? What's up, everybody? I'm good. I'm glad to be back. It was interesting. It's been an experience for sure. Being limited to your room for over 24 hours, damn near 36 hours, is interesting for sure. And then just the entire dynamic with it. I'm actually extremely impressed with Bellator and with the health protocols, safety protocols, everything here. It's just been, it's been an awesome experience. And like some people could be dreading this. Like I'm such a fight nerd that I'm like loving every second. Like I'm like, when we're doing the open workouts and we're sitting there hitting pads, and I don't know, I just love this entire lifestyle, and happy to share with you guys and happy to be here. I'm glad that I'm able to make it tonight.
Of course, Pete will be there cornering Nate Andrews, who I believe is the last preliminary fight taking on Syed Awad. So you'll have to tune in tomorrow night over there on the Bellator YouTube channel to see if you can hear Pete's voice, which I'm sure may come up at some point in that. But Pete, before we get into Saturday's UFC Vegas number 27, let's kind of take a look back just briefly last week of where, I mean, I'll tell you, Pete, man, I get off to a rocking start. Yagos sweated out that first round, gets that submission in the second round, hit Andrea Lee. Pete, I'm feeling good at that point. I'm like, oh man, I've already hit my punt play. I've got a big favorite on this one, and then just had way too much Jamie Pickett. Really went hardcore on Michael Chandler. That looked great in the first round of that fight. But kind of what was your thoughts on last week's slate?
My thoughts are, when I take a week off, I really take a week off. And if you were, on a lot of my picks, it was tough. It was a tough week. I think it was just a weird slate in general. If you were listening to my dog and my dog kind of, moving around and getting a little antsy at times, then his record was a lot better than my record on the strategy show for sure. So, I was happy to have Josh and Jason take the reins of that card because, sometimes you're on and sometimes you're off, and definitely not one of my best cards at all. But as far as the fights, I thought I wasn't able to go back and watch the full card, but I was able to watch like the highlights and stuff. And Charles Oliveira came through for me. I was really happy with that. Kind of like it's like a perfect way for him to win the belt, right? Like kind of prove that he's not the same fighter to get broken or beaten like mentally within the octagon. For him to kind of overcome that adversity is something that he struggled with a lot early on in his UFC career. So I thought that was like a perfect way to, claim the championship for sure. Outside of that, I thought it was just a weird night, man. I sat there, I pulled up the Tapology because we were at the wedding and whatnot, and I was trying not to get yelled at. So I pulled up the Tapology and I'm looking and I'm like doing double takes. I'm like, are these really the results? Because it was just such an odd night.
Yeah, man, it was, I kind of felt bad. I was like, oh man, I hope Pete's staying off Twitter because this guy's trying to enjoy a wedding. And there were some people just, let's just say it was a good teasing of like, hey man, I think your dog did a little bit better than you in the picks.
And listen, my dog did better than me with the picks. And, when I have an off night, I don't shy away from it. I'm telling you straight up, I had an off night. Everybody has a bad day. I guess I did not have a good read on that card.
Yeah, it's of course you had been a little one-upping me the past couple of weeks, so it was nice to kind of be back on the other side of that one. Of course, we are here to break down UFC Vegas number 27. Early start time on Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern time is the lock. Myself and Pete will be here on Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern time for live before lock. Of course, be sure to hit that thumbs up button right here on YouTube. If you're not subscribed to Awesemo, you got to subscribe to the channel. We got content for you each and every day. Of course, NHL playoffs in full swing. Has got the Lightning game on here. They're not doing too hot tonight. I thought about wearing a Lightning jersey, but with all these lights on me, it gets kind of hot. So I'm like, I can't go with the jersey here. But NBA going on as well. So, and of course, MLB going on. So we got shows for you each and every day. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you know when a new show is live here on the channel. But let's get kicked off right here with the main event. Rob Font versus Cody Garbrandt. 8,300 for Rob Font, 7,900 for Cody Garbrandt. A little bit of a different story over on the Fanduel side of the equation here. $20 for Garbrandt, $18 for Rob Font. Yeah, I did a little double take on that one as well here. This is obviously, I think, we talked about last week, the main event was a fight that you need to have rostered just because of the fighting abilities, what those guys bring to the table. And I think that's the same situation here. I do like Rob Font in this matchup. I just think he's the more technical boxer. I think one of the questions I wonder is, does Cody become back to a little bit of that patient fighter that we saw against Dominic Cruz, which was by far the best performance we have seen in the octagon. But of course, we all know what's happened over the past couple of years, the losses to Dillashaw, the injuries he's had, of course, coming off that great knockout win last year. But one of the things I keep thinking about, I go, okay, what is Cody Garbrandt's path to victory here? Obviously, we've seen, people take Rob down in the past, but Rob has worked his way back up. I really think leg kicks is a key for Cody Garbrandt.
It's interesting, right? Like I'm fascinated with this matchup, and the salaries make this like a must roster fight. It's a 5-round fight, of course. And you have two guys that are exciting strikers and, bring, dynamic striking, but also like power shots for the division. It's quite interesting. Like Cody Garbrandt possesses some incredible power. Rob Font, more of a technician, but does have some good pop in his shots. And he's a very patient fighter and, has the better defense. So like in this stylistic matchup, if Cody gets hit, the likelihood of Cody kind of going into rage mode and, going in there and just trying to, get that shot back. So like if Cody gets rocked, he immediately wants to rock his opponents, which then turns into a brawl. And if you do that against a technician like Rob Font, I think that he could end up, getting knocked out. And, but with all that being said, Cody Garbrandt, put on an incredible performance against Dominic Cruz, looked great in his previous outing against Rafael Sunsao, mixing camp between Team Alpha Male and with Mark Henry. I think that, they definitely have good strategy. Whenever you involve Mark Henry with your camp, you're going to have code words, you're going to have code names, code combinations, and just general strategy. Look at Frankie Edgar's career, and Mark Henry is a big part of that. But as far as the matchup, I do like Rob Font, and maybe it's a New England thing for me, but I also think that, he makes less mistakes than Cody Garbrandt. I think that Cody possesses defensive flaws, but there could be like an underlying chin issue now because he's taken so much damage within his career. And you can't really say the same about Rob Font. But regardless, you have to have this fight. I am leaning Rob Font in the matchup, though.
Can I get some love from a Tampa guy, Rob Font? I know in New England you like to take credit for him, but he is from Tampa, by the way.
Yeah, he's from Tampa, yes. But, we've adopted him, okay? He's a Boston guy. We've adopted him. And, has a ton of success within New England in the regional scene. And, he's friends with a lot of my training partners. You know what I mean? Tyson Chartier, New England Cartel, they've taken off, but he reps New England despite being from Tampa.
He does. But me and him have had those conversations about his time growing up here in Tampa. Of course, the one thing that does stick out to you about the tail of the tape of this fight is the reach advantage that Rob Font does have in this one, 71 inches, 65 inches. And I think you bring up a great point of, if Cody Garbrandt gets into the brawl, or goes into that mentality, how much do you trust that chin in that one? But to me, this is a fight that you got to have. Now, of course, we are sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight, and let me throw out what the more or less significant strikes on this one is, and a pretty big number here on both sides of the equation because Cody's not a volume guy. 62.5 for Cody Garbrandt, more or less 62.5 significant strikes for Cody.
I'm saying more. I think this is going to go into the later rounds.
I sent you that thing from Reddit this week about basically main events are either in the second round or they're going 5 rounds this year, which I thought was an interesting stat. Rob Font on the other side, of course, you can see it there on the screen. 82.5 significant strikes, more or less.
I'm still saying more. I mean, either one of these guys could get a finish over the other. But in the case that doesn't happen, it could be a back and forth striking affair, and it could be one for the ages. So I do like more on both sides.
I'll tell you, yeah, if you're going more on both sides, I think the mindset has to be this thing is going 5 rounds. If you think this one ends in under 3, I think you just go double less on both of them. But yeah, if it goes 5 rounds, you got to imagine that they are both going to go more just because of both of their fighting styles. Now, while we talk about the striking in the main event, we got to talk about the grappling in the co-main event. Big matchup at 115 pounds between the former champion Carl Esparza and Jan Jainan. 8,600 for Jainan, 7,600 for Carl Esparza. And then over on Fanduel, 17 and 14 respectively there. And Carla is a slight underdog in this one at plus 105 in the betting lines. I mean, look, if Carla's going to win, that means that she is scoring takedowns. But one of the things is she wears damage really bad.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, I feel like every time Carla Esparza is on the card, like everybody's always looking to target a fighter against her. Oh, this fighter's going to finally, get a win over Carla, because all Carla does and all she knows how to do is just grind and wrestle. And she doesn't produce the best DFS performances sometimes. But I mean, I think that she's going to be a staple within this division, because wrestling's, one of the most advantageous skills you can have inside the octagon. You can dictate where the fight takes place. And she's like an okay striker. She's not good by any means. She will get outstruck by Xiaonan 100%. But I think that Carla Esparza is just a tough out for anybody. And especially if you don't have a true wrestling background, you're going to end up on the mat, end up getting controlled throughout. And that's why I think that Carla Esparza is pretty solid value play on the card, despite her, posting some, underwhelming totals, in previous fights. This isn't an easy fight by any means, but I do think that she has these skills to get it done. And I think that I'll have her a part of my underdog pool for sure.
And when you look at 3 of her last 4 fights, she has scored at least 4 takedowns. Clement over in our Slack channel was asking, some questions about who's going to take down City. And I just wrote down potential candidates that could take their opponent to take down City. And it's definitely Carla Esparza here. But now if you look at the other side, the number that definitely sticks out to you, because she has taken on a striker here in Jan Jainan, 6.42 strikes landed per minute. Vice versa on the other side, 2.29 for Carla Esparza. But we all know if Carla's winning, it's because she's able to get this fight to the ground.
Yeah. So the one thing is, right, like whenever you're paired up against a wrestler, that volume's automatically going to decrease, because you're going to be somewhat tentative, because you don't want the wrestler to get underneath your shots. So you have to be a little bit more selective and a little bit more like a sniper out there. So I don't expect Zhao Nan's volume to remain the same. I don't think it's going to be a constant as it has in other fights, because of the threat of the takedown, right? Like you don't want to bring your hips forward. You don't want to get overzealous and then end up getting put on your back. So if, she can definitely win this fight if she has that sniper-like mindset from the outside. Anytime she enters into Esparza's bubble, so to speak, she could get, clinched. And anytime you get clinched, now your volume's not going to be there. And also the likelihood of you getting taken down is increased.
Yeah, this is one of those fights that I'm really going to be looking at ownership projections in terms of where both of these fighters will be at. Maybe see if I can get a little bit of a leverage on the field. Of course, our ownership projections are a part of Awesemo Plus, and we have 2 promos running right now to take advantage of, as today is the last day to get 25% off an Awesemo Plus Platinum Monthly Pass if you are a new Platinum Pass subscriber. Upgrades from sport-specific packages are eligible for this discount. You got to use that promo code GOLDRUSH at checkout. You see it right there on the screen. That's one word to activate this deal, which gives you access to everything we have to offer for DFS. Also, we have a NBA play-in special running through Friday, tomorrow, May the 21st, which gives you 2-week access to only $4.95 to our NBA Express Weekly Pass. That's 2 weeks of NBA Express Weekly for the price of 1. We use a promo code PLAYIN at checkout. That's play-in at checkout. That's the great thing about our NBA Express Pass, is that you get access to all of our tools for NBA Showdown and single game contests, which include player projections and ownership projections. There will be massive prize pools for Showdown contests during the NBA playoffs, so make sure to take advantage of this one right now. Stop guessing, start winning join Awesemo Plus today. I was taking advantage of those tools today as I was developing my lineup for the Showdown contest tonight, which I was, knew that I needed to get a little different in a one game slate. I know your Showdown is definitely the thing that you slide into, because I definitely knew tonight was a situation where everyone's going to be on Russ and it's a bonus. So I did want to get a little bit different. Only went about 35% captain with Russ, so we'll see how that one plays off. Great game last night. If I don't know if you were up late watching that one with the Warriors and the Lakers. Great game there. Of course, if you do have any questions on these fights, hit them up right there in the YouTube chat. Also in our premium Slack account. We will get to those as we do go on. Let's move on next to a heavyweight matchup. We got Justin Tafa versus Jared Vanderaa. Vanderaa 7,200 on DraftKings, $10 on Fanduel. Justin Tafa on the other side, 9,000 on DK. $20 over on Fanduel. So it's a matchup that I think that, a lot of people are going to be Justin Tafa backers here because of what they have seen from Jared Vanderaa, in the UFC and some of those things on the regional scene. But Pete, the one thing that does concern me is if Jared Vanderaa can get in that top position on the ground, because that's what he does best, is ground and pound.
Yeah. I mean, I'm interested in this fight, and I think that this is a very sneaky fight to target. There are plenty of fights on the card that I'm not prioritizing, but I feel like this is one of the fights that could wind up in the optimal lineup. I think that, Jared Vanderaa has that grappling path to victory, and he has that background training at Team Quest and Dan Henderson. So you would like for him to utilize his wrestling and try to get top position, because in heavyweight MMA, anytime somebody's in top position, it's very, very difficult for the bottom guy to get up. So much weight, so much power, from the top position. And you're talking about at his price point, that's definitely a way for him to kind of extremely pay off his salary. So I think that's his path to victory. And he has mentioned in some interviews how he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he didn't really have a good showcase in his previous bout against Sergey Spivak, but Spivak's very talented. And I will say that, within this matchup, he says that he wants to stand and strike for a while. I mean, he does enjoy striking, but against Justin Tafa, right? Like, I don't understand why you would welcome that, because Justin Tafa is such a I shouldn't say dynamic, such a powerful striker, throws bombs and has really good combinations. And in his previous matchup against Carlos Felipe, he demonstrated a strong chin and good, a good ability to overcome adversity. I mean, whether he wasn't able to see or got hit with a big shot, he was able to still stick it out and end up winding up into a slugfest in certain spots of that fight. So I do like Justin Tafa, because I think that Jared Vanderaa is just going to be, slow on the feet. And he doesn't go to his takedowns so much like I would like. I looked at some regional tape of his, and if he was going out there clinching and using the clinch to his advantage, I would really enjoy it. But he he allows his opponent to press him against the cage more often than not. And he has the wrestling background, so I don't understand why he allows that to happen. He gives up underhooks against a big guy like Justin Tafa, who hits like crazy. I do favor Justin Tafa. But this is a fight, like I said, I will be prioritizing.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about fighters who could potentially take their opponent to Takedown City, Jared Vanderaa has got to be one of those fighters that has to be in that pool to potentially think of here. He does have a massive reach advantage in this one, a 6-inch reach advantage, 80 to 74 inches here. Justin Tafa, obviously we've seen the potential power he has, but still very young in his mixed martial arts career. So I think that's, something, but I mean, look, it's heavyweight MMA. I mean, right. You could very easily, these are always, when I'm looking at heavyweight MMA, especially when we're talking about the DraftKings side of the equation, potentially a finish in under 60 seconds, that 25-point bonus, which could be a huge bonus to get you up on the field. But, look, I'll have both. I'll have shares of both these guys in my 20 max, but it definitely concerned about Tafa potentially getting taken down and then being down on the ground, of course. So if you do have any questions on the fights, be sure to leave those in there. Of course, maybe if you ever missed the show and you want to catch it in podcast form, check it out as a part of the Awesemo Podcast Network. And be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review with your Twitter handle or email address, and you will be eligible to win a free week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. One winner will be awarded every Friday, and eligibility and reviews are eligible to win up for 1 year. So be sure to check out our show right there on the Awesemo Podcast Network. Of course, all the great shows we have here at awesemo.com. Sam, we appreciate you checking in. Hopefully you can make it through the entire show there. I know he catches the show a lot of times. And look, if you catch the show after a fact, you got a question for myself and Pete, you can leave it in Slack. You can leave it in the YouTube comments. I know Pete does a really excellent job of getting in those YouTube comments and answering any questions that you do have in terms of that. Let's move on to the women's featherweight matchup, and that is Felicia Spencer taking on Norma Dumont. One of the questions you asked about fighters taking fights on short notice. This is one of those equations. Felicia Spencer was supposed to take on Danielle Wolf. Dumont now stepping in. Dumont's had the weigh-in issues trying to make at 135 pounds. So that's a little bit of a kind of a question mark in terms of, she tried to make weight, 2 weeks ago, I want to say, and couldn't make weight here. Felicia Spencer, I think what primarily people know her about most, Pete, is that she can take a beating. We saw what happened to Amanda Nunes. We saw her fight in Invicta against Chris Cyborg. Not necessarily what you want to be known for, though.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that Felicia Spencer is extremely tough. And anytime you hear somebody is extremely tough, that means that they've had to take a ton of damage or they've had to overcome a ton of adversity. And, it's good because you want to get experience and you want to get your feet wet. I mean, she has faced some of the top women in all of women's MMA. I mean, Amanda Nunes, most recently, Chris Cyborg. When she was in Invicta, she fought some tough competition as well. Megan Anderson. So, in the UFC. So it's like she's fought a list of names. And I think that she possesses some skills within the division. And I think that she is very talented. Solid striking, comes forward, throws some sneaky elbows when her opponents come forward too much, will look to head kicks as well. But her strong suit is her grappling and taking people's backs and just implementing, relentless takedowns into suffocating jiu-jitsu. So, this isn't an easy fight against Norma Dumont, who is stepping up on short notice. And anytime somebody's stepping up on short notice, that's an X factor because there's so many things you don't know about them. Have they been training? Have they not been training? Are they taking it for financial reasons? Are they taking it just to stay active? Are they prepared? Who do you favor? Somebody with a full camp or somebody on a short notice? More often than not, at the UFC level, when the UFC comes calling to you, a lot of fighters are staying ready throughout the COVID era. A lot of fighters just kept training and everything. So, I think that it's less about Norma Dumont taking it on short notice and more about the matchup. I think that she has skills. I think that she throws excellent hand combinations, good punches. She put on a heck of a performance against Ashley Evans Smith, her last time out. But, she has good jiu-jitsu as well. I just think that in this matchup, despite her struggles to make weight at the lower weight class, and now she's fighting Felicia Spencer at featherweight, I think that she could still be undersized and just kind of outmatched in all areas. I think that she's an interesting underdog, but I do favor Felicia Spencer in the matchup still. The price is okay. I wish she was a little cheaper, but I do like Felicia Spencer quite a bit.
Mentioned this quote from an MMA Fighting Story this week from Norma Dumont, where she talked about how she hasn't returned to Brazil since her canceled fight there back in April. And she said, quote, "Actually, the UFC paid part of my purse up front. They also wanted me to stay here, so that helped me out a lot. Our gym in Brazil was closed up until last week, so we don't have money coming in. That's also one of the reasons why we took this fight on short notice. We think it's a good fight because of her name and the fact that I'm always well trained and we needed the money. So I said, let's go. I'll fight."
What did I say? Didn't I say financial reason? And I did not even know that. That's why we fight, right? Like we want to all make big bucks, we want to make Conor money. That's the goal. But you also have to be strategic with your career. But I do think that in women's MMA, you have a little bit more slack because of the depth within the divisions. I think that she's doing the UFC a favor, which is good. You always want to be in the UFC's good graces. So it's kind of a win-win for her if she's going in there and she can pick up a W over a name of Felicia Spencer. That's a feather in her cap. If not, and she falls short, well, guess what? It's Felicia Spencer who's fought two of the toughest fighters in all of women's MMA. It was never finished by Amanda Nunes or Chris Cyborg. So nothing to really hang your head at, but it's Felicia Spencer for me, Jason.
Yeah, I think she's definitely the right side to play in here. Of course, we are sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. With Monkey Knife Fight, you are in charge. Sign up today at monkeyknifefight.com. Get an instant first match deposit when you sign up using the promo code Awesemo and get up to $50 instant first match deposit. And looking at the more or less significant strikes on this one kind of stuck out to me as well. Felicia Spencer, 62.5. Norma Dumont, 55.5. I think that's a pretty high number on both of these. This might be a double less for me in this one.
I think it's a double less for me because I think that Felicia Spencer will strike at moments, but Norma Dumont is dangerous in striking exchanges. Now, she does have good jiu-jitsu as well, but I think that Felicia Spencer's size and her wrestling should give her the advantage there. So I think that's where a lot of clinching happens. I think that's where takedowns happen, which does minimize output for striking.
Yeah, and of course, be sure to use that promo code Awesemo, instant first match deposit up to $100. You got to play over there at Monkey Knife Fight. Let's move on to the next matchup. We've got Dvorak and Paiva. Dvorak, 8,800. Paiva, 7,400. 18 and 12 respectively over on Fanduel. And I know when me and Pete were talking earlier this afternoon, this is one of these underdog spots that's got your eye.
Yeah, the division isn't my favorite for DFS. I mean, the flyweight division is typically not the best boom for DFS. But anytime that there's an interesting underdog, especially with a high skill set, I'm intrigued. Now, I think that both of these fighters are well matched, and it's going to be a back and forth contest because David Dvorak and Raulian Paiva are somewhat mirror images in some aspects. Solid striking, decent ground skills. So I think that it could be just who implements their game better that night. Now, I do think that Raulian Paiva is a very, very interesting underdog because of that power he possesses and within a division that somewhat lacks it. They both have sneaky finishing ability. Dvorak on the regional scene, has submissions and TKOs, and Raulian Paiva has shown solid power. But I think that Raulian Paiva is one of the most interesting flyweights out there, and he has fought some tough competition. I think of that Kai Kara France fight a lot. And, I am backing the UFC vet, if you will. I think that he's able to go out there and maybe win some scrambles or just chip away and get some rounds in his favor. So I will slightly edge Raulian Paiva, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to go out there and knock out David Dvorak because of that crazy power in that right hand of his.
I think in terms of a concern with Dvorak is you look at what he's done so far in the UFC, high 60s in terms of total strikes and significant strikes land. So I think that's got to be a little bit concerned. There's no takedowns, no knockdowns. This thing goes 15 minutes. Likely not, I can't see how you're optimal in that situation at 8,800. So this is one of those fights that I definitely will be looking at a little bit of the underdog there. I want to mention a question from Nick on the last fight. He says, does Spencer versus Dumont go decision? I would say you've got about a 6% chance it goes decision.
Yeah, I mean, typically, right? It's, in women's MMA, it tends to go the distance more often than not. I have a sneaky suspicion that Felicia Spencer is able to get a finish, though. It's like a 30% chance that she gets a finish, and I think that's fair. More often than not, she'll win rounds. But I think if it does, the finish does happen, it happens on the ground, whether it's from a TKO or, via submission. I just think that she's just going to be the much more physically imposing fighter out there. And I think it's going to be a tough out for Norma Dumont.
Earlier, I was mentioning about the promos that we got going on over at Awesemo.com. If you just want to get a peek of what those ownership projections look like, we do have had free content all day over at Awesemo.com, with that free content being the NBA player projections, NHL main slate top stacks, and the MLB main slate ownership projections. So if you want to kind of see what you get behind the paywall, that's a great way to kind of see. And of course, be sure to take advantage of those promos we got going on over there. Next up, we got a matchup that was supposed to take place a couple of weeks ago, however, did not take place due to COVID. That's Jack Hermansson and Edmund Shabazian. This is when this was initially booked, Pete, it was a little bit of a weird matchmaking. I want to say it was Brett Okamoto or somebody at ESPN. I saw this like a week ago. They were talking about the fight booking that apparently Shabazian was offered multiple opponents, ranked and unranked. He chose Hermansson, which I thought was kind of interesting because what concerns me if I'm in the Shabazian camp is Hermansson using grappling to get the fight to the ground. Now, yeah. I think Shabazian is a better striker. However, I've got questions on takedown defense and I got questions on cardio.
100%. Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, right? Like Shabazian just outclassed and outworked from Derek Brunson. Now is looking to rebound against another solid, if not more threatening grappler in, Jack Hermansson. So I'm intrigued with the decision. But if you look at Jack Hermansson's losses, he's been TKO'd. And I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to find a fighter that they can crack with a hard shot and force their way out of the fight. And, it's interesting because like Mma Shabazian is an early round finisher. Early within rounds 1 and 2 is where he's extremely dangerous. But the longer the fight goes on, you have to worry about that cardio. We saw it in the Brunson fight. We saw the grappling questions. And, I think the stock of Shabazian definitely decreased following the Brunson fight. I mean, how could it not? You had an incredible prospect who was just completely exposed on a national level by, I don't want to call Brunson a journeyman by any means, but against a UFC veteran who some of his better days were behind him. And, a lot of people were counting out Brunson in the matchup. And I thought that Shabazian could go out there and put him away. But I will say that this is a very intriguing fight. And I think it might be a part of the optimal because of just the volatility of both sides. I do like Jack Hermansson in the belt because of the grappling and that he's just an adequate striker that can kind of get by, avoid some big shots, clinch Shabazian, trip him down. And if he gets him down, the ground and pound is relentless. The submission game is incredible. I like Hermansson quite a bit, but Shabazian is one of the most talented underdogs on the entire slate. So how could you not have some exposure to Shabazian? He could go out there and just put Hermansson's lights out early and be a part of that early Francis Ngannou bonus.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things when you look at the price points on this one, 8,900 and 7,300 over on DraftKings. So you look at Shabazian, the question you have here is this is a fighter who's still very young in his career, a very developing fighter. He was given the right matchups, leading up to this. And then when he got that knockout over Brad Tavares, that really progressed things pretty quickly to get that top 10 opponent because Brad Tavares, that's kind of like a staple of, okay, are you a top 10 fighter or not? But I mean, taken down 4 times in his last fight, you have to imagine Hermansson, that's got to be part of the game plan. What does concern me was Hermansson and COVID coming back this quickly. Could we see any issues there? This is one of those things that, like in my 20 max, I'm going to be sprinkling in Edmund Shabazian. It's one of those things that I don't want to get too much Edmund Shabazian because I think sometimes when we're building those lineups, when you can squeeze in that 7,300 fighter, it really opens up other things that you potentially want to do because, when I first started looking at the DraftKings salaries, I was like, man, I think this is a middle range type week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm agreeing with a lot of what you're saying. And as a fighter that's also had COVID, not leading up to a bout, but had COVID and has been training throughout the entire pandemic, I did notice a difference with my cardio early on. So it all comes down to how Hermansson is right now. I don't like the fact that he popped for COVID. When I had COVID and then I ended up still training, I felt fine after. It's just like you feel like a blockage in your lungs, Jason, where it's kind of like your breathing's impeded. You feel like no matter what you do, you just can't get like a full capacity out of your lungs or a full expansion of your lungs. It was very weird, but I'm good now. And I think the longer that you are from COVID exposure or whatnot, you will be okay. But that's obviously something I don't like hearing when we're talking about breaking down a fight, because when I look at Hermansson's body and in the photo shoot and everything, he looks incredible, Jason. He looks chiseled from stone. Mm-hmm. But the cardio questions surrounding COVID are definitely an X factor here. And if he goes out there a little too aggressive in round one, you could be looking at a nice price on Shabazian who comes through.
Yeah, also, Shabazian gets off to a great start. Could be a great live betting potential for Jack Hermansson, which is something you got to pay attention to. Of course, you can always check out the odds over there at Odds Shopper. Of course, one of the things that Pete and I both love to see after the fights are over are those winning lineups. And, of course, you want to get into that Awesemo Hall of Fame. Download that Awesemo profile pic at awesemo.com/avatar. Tweet your wins to @Awesemo HOF. Win a free month of Also Plus Platinum. Of course, to take a part of that, you do got to finish in the top 3 of the contest with over 5,000 entries. Peter Hanley taking down an NBA contest with him. Kudos to him. Love the caption on Twitter. Can the real Slim Shady please stand up, as takes down the NBA there over in Fanduel. Also, Nick, what he was able to do on NBA as well, finishing in second place there with that lineup last night. Of course, great game there between the Lakers and the Warriors. Also, congratulations to Jonathan, what he was able to do there in the piggy bank over on Draftkings. Also, Matt Barnett taking down first place in the MLB Keystone competition there, and a Beasy taking down a NHL contest as well. So congratulations there. Of course, always love to see those, and be sure to rock that Awesemo avatar on your DFS profile. Pete, let's move on to the next matchup on this card. That'll be Bill Algeo and Ricardo Ramos. This is one that has got my eye. And look, Bill Algeo is a guy that on the regional scene, he fought anyone. This is not someone who shied away from competition. And the one thing you do love about him is the volume you see in there. 6.8 strikes landed per minute of fighting in the UFC.
Yeah, small sample size, but we do like what we've seen from Bill Algeo on the regional scene. You know, he's had a very tough strength of schedule from Ring of Combat to CFFC, even in the UFC. I mean, taking on Ricardo Lamas and Spike Carlisle. I mean, 2 strong guys, you know, both. I'll say Ricardo Lamas is extremely well-rounded. Spike Carlisle, more of a grappler and explosive striker. But I like what I've seen from Bill Algeo. And I know that, you know, from watching him on the regional scene, seeing how he's done against tough competition, he's a gamer, man. Like he's there from bell to bell. And I like him in this matchup against Ricardo Ramos. And I think that, you know, this could be a nice spot for Bill Algeo because he can match the grappling of Ricardo. You know, Bill Algeo is a black belt himself, but he's a very, very aggressive striker, well-rounded individual. I just like Bill Algeo. I think that he's paid his dues on the regional scene. And, you know, we have seen Ricardo, you know, somewhat get put out, you know, in fights and get finished because, you know, whenever you're able to impose your will on him, not saying that he breaks in some spots, but I think that Bill Algeo can have success in multiple areas. So I'm favoring Bill Algeo quite a bit here. How about you?
Yeah, I'm with you there as well. I like his price both on DraftKings and FanDuel. I think he's a little bit of a sneaky play over there on Super Draft at that captain spot of 1.95. Could be a little under the radar play there. Really like that price on FanDuel, $16. But 8,500 on DraftKings is a good one. You know, the only concern you potentially have with him is that if the stoppage doesn't come and he's going to have to land a ton of volume to be a score there. But I do like him in this position. Next up, we got a heavyweight matchup, a matchup that's a late replacement as it's now the third opponent for Ben Rothwell as he is now taking on Chris Barnett, who took the fight at the end, I want to say end of last week. 9,200 for Ben Rothwell, 7,000 for Chris Barnett. I am very familiar with Chris Barnett. He made his way through the Tampa regional scene, a fan favorite. If you watched the XFC back in the day on HD Net, when it was HD Net, he was a guy super athletic, cartwheels and everything that he can do. I would say I was a little surprised to see him get in the UFC just kind of based on what it's been here. I'm interested to see what he looks like on the scale tomorrow. This is a guy that has fought at well over 300 pounds. And, that to me is going to be an interesting situation here. Ben Rothwell, you got to pay up for it. Look, this is not the Ben Rothwell 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But he still, to me, should win this fight.
Yeah. Are we confident this fight even happens, Jason? I don't know. As of right now, we have to break it down. I don't know if, I don't know if he can make weight. So we'll have to see. You brought that up to me on a phone call. We'll have to see. But, you're in the UFC. Your strength of schedule outside the UFC is somewhat questionable. You're an exciting guy for sure. But now you're facing a staple within heavyweight MMA, and that's Ben Rothwell, who's an aging veteran. So perhaps the aging part can help you in a situation like this if you're able to kind of be that younger, more aggressive, more imposing fighter within the octagon and just use your youth to your advantage. And I think that's where he could win this fight by, just backing Rothwell up. But good luck, because Rothwell is just a mammoth of a human being. And, Rothwell's just been weird lately. Like, his performances have been strange. Not the best DFS guy as of late, but early on in the UFC, you see that he's dynamic. He can press opponents against the cage. He can get sneaky knockouts. He has a sneaky submission game as well. I do favor Ben Rothwell, but, you always say time is undefeated. So, Father Time's undefeated. When we'll have to see. We'll have to see. You don't know how a fighter is affected by Father Time until we see a poor performance. And, it's very tough. Sometimes you want to be a fight early rather than a fight late. So perhaps you want to target the underdog here. I don't hate it. It is heavyweight MMA. Could land a big shot. He's an exciting guy, throws from odd angles. But as far as recommendations, I still have to side with Ben Rothwell.
Just look at last week. Jacare Souza.
Right. Look at
and Tony Ferguson.
Yeah. Okay. So the Tony Ferguson one, I understand. Jacare Souza, very, very old now, but one of the best grapplers of all time. The fact that he was submitted just goes to show you that every dog has its day. And, crazier things have happened in MMA, and crazy things will continue to happen in MMA. That's why it's the craziest sport of them all. Upsets happen more often in this sport than anything.
Yeah, it was a crazy stat that I saw just on Tony Ferguson, just of how much he's been controlled, which,
yeah,
God, Habib would have smashed him. After what we've seen the last two fights, there is not a doubt in my mind.
Hindsight's 20/20, huh? You know what I mean? We see these and we see the path to victory, and it's oh my gosh. I was Team Habib. I don't know what you were, but I was always Team Habib.
Look, I thought Ferguson would give him a big run for his money. Clearly, I was wrong. I was wrong.
The one thing that I think we could have all overrated is his jiu-jitsu. His darces are incredible, but we always worried about, Habib getting caught in something, or Tony Ferguson just being able to scramble into a submission from some odd position, and perhaps we overrated that skill.
By the way, of course, we're sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. Do want to mention the more or less significant strikes in this Rothwell and Barnett fight. 65.5 had been Rothwell for Chris Barnett. 31.5.
Yeah,
it's heavyweight MMA though.
I know. I'm probably going over on the Barnett just because 30s. I don't know. What's he going to do? What's he going to do to win the fight?
Okay, but here's got to be the other question about it. With Chris Barnett taking this fight on short notice, is he just going to go for it all in the first round? And maybe that's where you got to be looking at the less on both sides of this one.
Okay. He throws 15. Say it goes the distance. He throws 15 per round. Okay.
I know. That's
not bad. That's not bad. I'm with the over on that and the under on Ben Rothwell. Ben Rothwell will probably throw, 65 head movements, and that's about it. I don't know if he's such an awkward fighter. I don't know if he'll really throw 65 actual strikes.
I think if you want to go more on the Barnett side, you gotta be hoping that the fight hits late second round.
Early third. 100%. Anytime we're targeting these more or less, you have to take into consideration, number one rule Is the fight finishing early, or is the fight going the distance? And then once you determine that outcome, that's where you can really kind of like plant your flag on the side of the more or less. Because if you think fights are getting finished, then you should be taking the less on a lot of these.
You know, the Smoking Pug brings it up. There's been a lot of underdogs coming in. That's definitely part of what we got to think about as we're developing our DFS lineups. Of course, when you do become a Also Plus member, you do get access to our premium Slack account, which is a great tool to sit there and talk to everyone here at Awesemo, and also talk to our community about how everyone is feeling about their lineups. So that's a great perk we have over there when you're an Awesemo Plus member. Let's move on. We got still a couple more fights here left to go. We got Court McGee versus Claudio Silva, Pete's favorite fight of the night. 8,200 versus 8,000. As Claudio Silva is your 8,200. Court McGee over at 8,000. This is one of those fights that I keep going back on whether or not I think this could end up optimal because of its salary. But I keep thinking no, just because I feel like this is going 15 minutes.
It's a weird spot, right? Because we think of Court McGee of being this grinder, this tough striker who, has a decent wrestling skill set, good defensive wrestling for the most part, and just a tough fighter for sure, and has definitely earned his stripes. But as of lately, his recent stretch has not been good at all. Like he has not been good, and he has fought some legitimate competition, so I can't really knock him for that. It's just like, we mentioned it. It's Father Time gets us all. And it's not so much about age as it is about miles on the body. And I do think that he has so many miles on the body that perhaps it's starting to catch up with him. Perhaps it's just getting complacent. And I think that complacency is huge within MMA. And that's why you do see fighters making changes or just, camp switches a lot, because the worst thing a fighter can be is complacent, because you always have to be pushing yourself. You always have to be putting yourself, in discomfort. Going outside of your comfort zone is how you grow and how you will continue to expand your knowledge within MMA. And if you're kind of sticking with the same people that you're comfortable with, who they're not really pushing you in sparring or grappling, that's where you could go through these little peaks and valleys in MMA. But with all that being said, I still favor Claudio Silva. I just think that he's been better as of late. I think that he has the grappling to make things interesting. I didn't think his striking looked all that bad against James Krause. I mean, like, it's not good, but it's adequate enough. And I think that he just, I don't know, he kind of seems like he wants it a little bit more than Court McGee does at this stage of the game.
The last time Court McGee won a fight by stoppage. You ready for this crazy stat?
Yeah, hold on. 2008?
2010.
Damn, I was close. I said
versus Ryan Jensen.
I said 2008 because that's when I graduated high school. So
yeah,
I was just throwing it out there, and that's pretty crazy.
How about this one? Okay. 14 of his last 15 fights have gone the distance.
And that's a testament to his toughness, right? That's a testament to his toughness and his cardio. I mean, he's a gamer. He always has been. He's come from a strong camp of, good, like a good mentality. I don't really know what his training schedule is going on lately, but I still think that Claudio Silva is going to be able to do enough. If Claudio Silva gets Court McGee down, I think things could get pretty ugly pretty quickly for him, though.
I know he does a lot of coaching out there in Utah with the up-and-coming fighters. But, I mean, look, if Court can keep this fight on the feet, there could be a decent – we've seen his last two fights, a ton of volume, land over 100 strikes in each of his last two fights. But the key is he just cannot make this a grappling fight in this one. If he does, I do think he's in trouble.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't really feel like I'm going to prioritize this fight, but each week that 8,200, 8,000 fight is extremely appealing because of the flexibility it allows for the rest of your roster, and also, how they don't have to score so much points within that salary range to really come through and, just perform in that salary.
Next up, we have got Bruno Silva taking on Victor Rodriguez. Bruno Silva, one of the most expensive fighters this week, 9,300. Victor Rodriguez, 6,900 over on Fanduel. $22 for Bruno, $9 for Rodriguez. What's your thoughts on this one? High price tag to pay here for Bruno Silva.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's justified though, because I think Bruno Silva comes from a very strong camp. I think that he has the advantage in all departments. I think that he's the better striker. I think he's a better grappler, wrestler. He has it all. And I think a lot of people that were doubting Silva in the previous fight are now kind of like Silva backers. Like, wow, you look really, really good. And he's proven us that he's talented within the division for sure. And I'm not really sure. I'm not really sold on his opponent. I don't really know if he's UFC level, but if you're looking for a long shot play for a fighter that throws with extreme power and is extremely reckless and could land, one shot and put somebody out and has that puncher's chance, then I definitely think you could look at his opponent as the underdog. But I mean, 9,300, I'm okay with that for Bruno Silva. It's not my favorite salary for my for the flyweights. I don't really like prioritizing that weight class, but I still have to think that Silva's an excellent play, and I'll be having plenty shares.
Of course, when we get through these final three fights, we will answer any question you have. Samuel, I'll see you there in the super chat. We'll get to those. Of course, we'll give our straight up fight picks as well. So we got Josh and Shailene here. 9,100 for Josh, 7,100 for Shailene. Shailene making his UFC debut here.
Yeah, interesting fight, right? The price tag on Kulabau it's Kulabau.
Yeah.
I think that the price is a little outrageous, but he did look good in his previous bout, and hasn't had success in the UFC yet. But we've also seen moments where he's shown impressive skill. So at one point, the skill will start to result in wins. You would like to think. This fight's a tricky fight, man, because his opponent definitely has a grappling avenue for having success. He needs to look for takedowns and implementing control and winning rounds by going through his wrestling. But, I do still think that Kulabau gets it done. It's just a hefty price tag, man. I don't know if I can get behind that price tag, but I will have him in some lineups just because I do think he comes out victorious.
Next up, we got Yancy Medeiros and Damir Hadrovich. Medeiros, 7,800, 8,400 for Hadrovich. This is one that I am looking at as well here, Pete. Yancy Medeiros has got a reach advantage in this one, very much of a striking aspect. He's one of those under 8,000 fighters I am looking at because of his striking ability.
Yeah, I do like Yancy Medeiros. Now, I think that this is an extremely volatile fight. I think that, if you look at the fight, that neither one of these guys have been, reliable. They've both dropped fights. They've both been finished. But I do think the length of Yancy Medeiros, the cardio, the grappling in his back pocket, despite being exposed in that area, I think that he will have the advantage in the grappling. I feel like a lot of people will be backing Hadzovic here, but I can't do it. I don't know. I look at him and I've seen what he's kind of just materialized in UFC, and it's like he doesn't check as many boxes as I was once hoping, and he's been somewhat underwhelming. And I know that Yancy Medeiros is a liability of getting rocked and finished, but I still like Yancy Medeiros, especially as a value play. But mark this one as one of the most volatile matchups on the entire slate.
The Damir, the opening fight, I think is the Damir that everyone's got their eyes on. Ismagulov, 9,500, taking on Rafael Alves, 6,700. The question is, 9,500. That is a huge price tag. At that price tag, you got to be getting me 100 plus points.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that both Damirs will be decently popular because you see Yancy getting finished a lot, but this Damir, the good Damir, will act the good Damir. I feel bad saying that, but Ismagulov is definitely an exciting fighter within the division, and at that price range, it does make things difficult. But his opponent has been finished in multiple occasions. I want to see him make weight this time around. I know that he had some complications surrounding that in his first attempt, but missing weight by one of the most historic misses I've ever seen in my life. I think that Alves is very tough. I think that he's a good striker. I think that he has submission skills. I just think that this is almost the UFC saying, you really screwed us last time around. We're pairing you up against Ismagulov because you put us in a horrible spot, and it's almost like a lesson, and people can not agree with that or not think that's how this business works. But let me tell you, this business works like this. And I think that Ismagulov is justified at his salary. The only thing is just the production doesn't match it. And I still think that it could. It's not a no for me, but it does make lineup construction a little difficult.
Samuel, I will not go heavy on the first fight, and it's just the price point. The 9,500 price point is because then we are talking about then you're having to go down to that under 7,300 range. I feel like if you're putting Ismagulov in your lineup, you're probably going to have a lot. Your guy you're going to turn to is Edmund Shabazian. Yeah. But I mean, look, the first fight of the night has been optimal more times than not over the past. I mean, I had Yagos last week, but boy, after that first round, I was not feeling good because Sean Soriano, man, was piecing him apart, and he was looking good, but they got that submission there in the second round. Of course, be sure to hit that thumbs up button right here on YouTube. Of course, if you are not subscribed to also right here on YouTube, you got to do that. Got a ton of great shows for you each and every day to get you ready for all the playoff action that we have going on right now. Also, be sure to hit that notification bell so you know when a show is live here on the channel. Pete, before we get into some questions here, of course, start lining those questions up in the YouTube chat. So let's go down our straight up fight picks. These are not DFS related. Let's start with the main event. I think we're both going to agree on this one. Give me Rob Font against Cody Garbrandt.
Yeah, Rob Font.
Yan Xiaonan versus Carla Esparza.
Esparza.
I will go with the favorite, Yan Xiaonan. I think she does enough to keep the fight on the feet. Wow. Okay. Justin Tafa and Jared Vandera.
Going Tafa.
I will go Tafa as well. Give me Felicia Spencer against Norma Dumont.
Same, Felicia Spencer.
David Dvorak versus Raulian Paiva.
Raulian Paiva for me.
I will agree with you there. Jack Hermanson, Edmund Shabazian.
Ooh, this is a tough one. I'm going Hermanson, though.
It's a tough one for me as well. I just feel more confident Hermanson right now than I do Shabazian, just because I just have question marks on Shabazian. Ricardo Ramos and Bill Algeo. I will go Bill Algeo.
Algeo for me as well.
El Signo Perfecto would be the nickname there.
He's got a great nickname.
Yeah, he does. Great, fun fighter to watch fight. Give me Ben Rothwell against Chris Barnett.
Yeah, same. Rothwell.
Court McGee versus Claudio Silva. This is one I've been going back and forth on.
I'm going Claudio Silva. I'm not really doubting myself on this one.
Give me Court McGee.
Okay.
I've always been kind of a little bit of a fan of Court McGee. I was there the night he won the Ultimate Fighter, and that was a very emotional speech that he gave when that went down. Bruno Silva, Victor Rodriguez.
Bruno Silva.
Yeah, Bruno Silva as well. Josh Kutalabo and Shaynan.
I will go. I'll go Josh Kulabau.
I will go with the same there. Give me Yasmin Medeiros against Damir Havovich.
Against Medeiros as well.
And I will go Damir Ismagulov against Rafael Alves.
Damir for me as well.
All right, let's get some couple of questions in here before we get out of here on this edition of the Strategy Show. Samuel, appreciate you in the super chat. He's got his usual questions. So let's just start off here. Top 2 cash.
Top 2 cash. Let's think. Well,
while you think about that, I will give you mine. Mine would be, and this is a cash, not GPP, so straight up cash. And these are ones I've got the most confidence in. I think they're going to win. I will go Felicia Spencer and God, what am I going to say? Ben Rothwell, but I am.
Okay. I'm going to go Carla Esparza as a value play for cash. I think that it's a safe one. And then I will say, I do like Bruno Silva quite a bit.
In terms of GPP, the easy route for me would say the main event, but I'll say Rob Font to give you the second one to me in terms of GPP. I think I look Justin Tafa just because of the finishing ability.
Yeah, I do like Justin Tafa. I do like Rob Font. I think Bill Algeo is extremely interesting. extremely interesting, especially at his price point.
In terms of MVP and champion, I think, look, everyone's going to be looking at that main event, and a very good reason of why that. If you do want to get a little different, Bill Algeo, I think, is someone to be looking a little different on.
Yeah, I think that he's a sneaky play. Ricardo is extremely tough, but I think that he can be broken at times, and I like the volume. I like the jiu-jitsu. I do like Bill Algeo quite a bit in that situation. A guy that could be flying under the radar is like Yancy Medeiros for GPPs because of that submission ability. And we did see that glaring hole in Damir Hadzovic's game.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about inside the distance props, I think that's one fight to pay attention to. Maybe looking at taking a little bit of a under. In that one, upsets and punts, I think we've kind of talked about that one throughout the show of some of the ones that you can look at. I mean, I think you got to look at Carlos Esparza. Jared Vanderaa, I think, is someone to pay attention to as potentially a pump play. Edmund Shabazian, we labeled out of why that is. Potentially to go there. Yancy Medeiros, another one to mention too. Fade of the night and favorite candidates for fight of the night. In terms of fading, I wouldn't say I'm fading anything. I would say more of, I think I will limit my exposure on the co-main event.
See, I like Carla Esparza from a value perspective. I think that she makes roster construction pretty easy. I would probably say, and it's not a fade, it might be just a slight underweight approach would be Josh Kulabau, just because he hasn't really gotten a victory within the UFC. He looked like a dangerous striker, but his opponent has a clear path to a grappling victory. And it's just like a hefty price tag for a guy that really hasn't gotten a victory within the UFC.
Yeah, it's and then in terms of fight of the night, to me, I will go with the main event as term of fight of the night.
Yeah, I think the main event. I'll say the Shabazian Hermansson fight's a very, very sneaky fight, and Hermansson, to kind of backtrack a little bit, is one of my favorite GPP plays.
Nick was asking about the $23 on Ismagulov over on Fanduel. We talked about 9,500 being a price. I mean, 23 is still a big price tag as well.
We've seen worse than that, though, haven't we, over on FanDuel? I feel like that's like we see like 22, 21, occasional 23. I mean, I think that Ismagulov's going to completely outclass his opponent and work possibly towards a finish. So I think that the salary is justified, but the salary needs to be justified, and the rest of your lineup needs to come through for you in order to get the raw points to win.
Nick was asked about Ismagulov or Bruno Silva. So you save $200 on DraftKings going to Bruno Silva.
I think Bruno Silva is in an easier matchup, and the salary relief is definitely helpful.
By the way, Pizza, they're in the Bellator bubble, a part of Bellator 259. His guy Nate Andrews. Have you seen the betting odds? He's a pretty sizable favorite in this one.
I haven't shared it with him though. I don't, you know what I mean? Like I've been selective with what I've said, and you know what I mean? I know how it is on fight week, and it's just been a great experience, but I have seen the betting odds, and I'm excited for the entire fight. I'm happy that I was able to do this show with you guys and for you guys. If you guys really appreciate our show, you missed me. Maybe you missed me. I don't know how you could miss me after last week, but maybe you do miss my face or my analysis. Just hit the thumbs up for us. We do appreciate it. Jason and I will be here on Saturday. Jason, I've been here at the Mohegan Sun Hotel for over a week because I was at a wedding and my girlfriend and I stayed in this hotel. So I literally haven't left. I've just been Mohegan Sun for over a week. I'm ready to go home, buddy. I am ready to go home.
I'm sure you are. I will tell you on the betting odds, if you play the Chris Cyborg by TKO prop, it's minus 215 right now at one book I've seen. That's a prop I like. If you can find a prop, I don't know if it'll get posted, but there's one. Davon Franklin wins by knockout or TKO against Tyler King. That's one. God. He is
that's wrong.
Minus 950 betting favorite in that one.
That's wrong, Jason. That is wrong. That is wrong.
Just being honest, man.
that is I am not sharing anything about this card. I mean,
I know. Look, I know some people always want to hear some betting. I looked at that. Frankly, you don't want to pay that minus 950. So if you can find a prop inside the distance, that's definitely one to pay attention to there. Some big favorites on Bellator if you're looking to bet that card. Chris Cyborg, nearly a 15-1 betting favorite.
I mean, usually that's how Bellator is, right? Like the odds are more wide. They're wider on Bellator than they are on the UFC more often than not.
Yeah, sometimes in those big props, in those big lines, you got to find the prop bets to limit those odds a little bit there. But good luck tomorrow night, Pete, for your guy Nate there taking on Syed Awad. Of course, as Pete said, we'll be here on Saturday for UFC Live Before Lock, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, leading up to UFC Vegas number 27. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Awesemo MMA DFS Strategy Show. See y'all guys on Saturday, and good luck tonight on your DFS lineups.